What's up, homies? This is Ebony from Homegirl Astrology, and today we are talking about codependency in the birth chart. We'll define what codependency is, and we'll talk about how it shows up in the chart. So if you're interested in hearing more about it, stay tuned, stick around until after the beat drops. Thanks to those of you who stuck around. Let's start off with the definition of codependency. So, codependency can be described as devoting all your emotional and mental energy to another person at the expense of your own health. And that's according to the International Journal of Mental Health and Addiction. All right, so while it's great and totally natural to want to be in love and to want to be accepted by our friends and family, if you're always taking a backseat to other people in your life, then that can be a sign of codependency, and that is not good. I'll share more links about codependency in the description box below because I want to focus more on the astrological side of that in this video. So for me, codependency really comes in two forms. So there's the Jordan Sparks, Chris Brown side of it from No Air, where they're saying, how do you expect me to be alone with just me? Crazy, okay? But that's the side of codependency that says, I can't live without this person. I'll die without them because I can't stand on my own 2 feet without them, ultimately because I have low self-esteem. So then there's this other side of codependency that says, I don't think that person can manage without me, and I worry that they'll die or something bad will happen to them if I'm not there to support them. So I'm just going to give and give and give of myself until there's nothing left, right? So that's also problematic, and that's another side of it. So we'll dig more into both of those later, but let's just talk about how it shows up in the chart. So like anything on my channel, when I do a listicle, this is not an exhaustive list, okay? This is what I've seen based on my studies, on my astrological practice, and this is what's come up. However, in astrology, the same chart can show one story multiple different ways. So if you've seen codependency show up in your chart or in somebody else's chart differently, feel free to weigh in below. I'd love to hear what you're seeing and how it's showing up for you. All right, so let's talk about it. So let's start with this first kind of codependency that I talked about. So the no air kind, right, where I can't breathe without this person. So we'll start with Neptune. I've mentioned Neptune many times on the channel already. We know that Neptune is a planet that represents confusion. There's a sense of fuzziness related to Neptune. In relationships, Neptune can show a kind of merging and melting and melding of people where there's no boundaries. So codependency can definitely arise in Neptunian relationships. We also will later experience delusions because of that codependency, and then disappointment also, usually. So Neptune can do this by being in the 7th house. It can also make aspects to the ruler of the 7th house. And that's just another way for Neptune to eliminate boundaries or for us to confuse things and allow that merger to happen. We also can see that with Venus, Neptune coming together as well, because we know Venus as a general significator for love. So we'll have a lack of boundaries in love or a sense of codependence in love or with people we love. So then we have the moon in the 7th house. Now, the moon, from a universal significator standpoint, the moon can represent where we find safety. So if the moon is in your 7th house, then you likely find safety through relationships, through partnerships. That's where you feel the most at ease and the most comfortable. So you may find yourself in codependent situations because you just feel like being partnered with somebody feels safer than being alone with the devil you don't know, aka yourself. And you could add the sun in the 7th house for a similar reason. The sun can represent our personality from a universal significator standpoint. But also we want to look at the chart ruler showing up in the 7th house. So very similar to what I just shared about the moon, but the chart ruler can represent where we find motivation in our charts and in our lives. So this is the thing that we're naturally going to gravitate towards. So whatever house your chart ruler's in, you're going to find something in that house that pulls you in. So if your chart ruler is in the 7th house, you're going to be pulled in by relationships and by partnerships. So again, with that, we may stay in a situation well long after it's past due, it's expired, it's disgusting, but we're still in it because we feel we need a partner and because we don't fully know ourselves. And a lot of times with the chart ruler in the seventh house, you're going to have the experience of learning about yourself through the relationships that you find yourself in. So sometimes it feels like you have to be in a relationship because you don't know who you are and because you're learning yourself through the other person. On the seventh house ruler, which we've touched on a little bit with the Neptune and the moon. So if they're contacting your seventh house ruler, that can be a thing. But also, if the seventh house ruler is exalted or in domicile, so that means that they are in a good sign for them. Whatever that planet is that's ruling your seventh house, if it's in a sign that it likes to be in, then sometimes that can mean the partner is very strong in our chart. And if the ruler of the chart is not in a great position itself, then sometimes that can represent us putting the other person on a pedestal or feeling that we are not good enough to be with them. So that can yield a codependent relationship because of that low self-esteem. In comparison, there's like an imbalance there. So that can cause us to stay in relationships where we feel like, oh, we're just lucky to be with that person. Or another side of that could be leaving a relationship because we feel like we're not good enough and the person's going to break up with us, even if it's not really true. So that's another thing. And I'll add this caveat that all of the things that I've said about the seventh house or the seventh house ruler could also apply when we're talking about codependency. Those things could also apply to the fifth house too. They could apply to the 10th house too, or the fourth house or the 11th house, because codependency doesn't always occur between romantic partners. Codependency can show up between a parent and a child. It can show up between friends, really anyone in your life. You could have a codependent relationship with your coworkers. Okay, so moving on with Venus Chiron, that can bring someone who doesn't really speak up for themselves in the relationships that they're in. So this is because there is a fear that speaking up for me and myself and what I need is going to push that other person away. And ultimately, I don't want to be alone. So Venus Chiron can be another example of how codependency shows up from that perspective. Next, strong Scorpio placements. Okay, don't come for me. I got a lot of Scorpio on my chart, so it's all love. But there is an emotional depth and intensity that comes with being a fixed water sign ruled by Mars, okay? That fixity is going to be what keeps you staying still. It's going to keep you staying put, and the water corresponds to emotion and love and those strong feelings that we have. So a Scorpio can take an emotional licking and keep on ticking, for better or for worse. They're 10 toes down. People say Scorpio people are crazy, but they're really just committed. And as I'm saying that, I'm thinking about how when you're sent to a mental hospital, that means that you're being committed. There's something to that. Wow, I'm gonna pause. Okay, moving on. Pisces and Virgo are both very giving signs, but in different ways. Pisces is a mutable water sign ruled by Jupiter, so there's more of an emotional merger coming with Pisces. Pisces is a sign that is taking on all of the things that are around it and outside of itself. It's very porous. It pulls in from the environment whether it wants to or not. So it feels like this connection and this like we are one sort of feeling. That boundlessness comes with Pisces. Virgo is an earth sign, so it's more of a doer. Virgo and Pisces can both have codependent traits associated with them. So Pisces is more of the, I feel like things will fall apart for this person. We're connected. I feel everything that they feel. So we're together. We're in this. And I need to be supporting this person because I feel it. I feel what they're going through. And I need to be there for them. Virgo is a different side of that. So Virgos are fixers. They're constantly fixing things around them. So they're going to feel like I have to fix the thing that is going on in this person's life or they're going to fall apart. There's like this anxiety that is attached with Virgo, for better or for worse. You love having a Virgo around because they're going to tell you the stuff that other people aren't going to tell you, because they feel compelled to fix things and make them right. But at the same time, the Virgo is also going to tell you the things that you didn't really feel like you needed to hear just because they felt compelled to tell you. Anyway, I don't like to do too much sign astrology, so you can apply that Virgo to other parts of your chart, not just the sun. You know, if it don't apply, let it fly. So now I'll move on to Libras, who if you know anything about the signs, you probably knew that Libra was going to come up. Libra moons, and really the moon sign for these, the signs that I'm talking about especially, is where you'll see this codependency come up. Because there's like this inner compulsion of safety, as I mentioned. So with Libras, Libra moon especially, Libra is a cardinal air sign ruled by Venus. So there's this desire to make connections, especially love connections, because Venus is involved. Libra people want to be in relationships, point blank, period. I'm thinking of a Libra moon person right now who I don't remember the last time this person has not been in a relationship, and they've never lived by themselves. There is just this desire of togetherness that comes with Librahood. And it's more mental than emotional though, versus like Scorpio is more of an emotional deep connection. Libra is more of like an air. There's more air in the connection, but they still do want to be connected. And a Libra says, I need somebody to flirt with. I need somebody to pour my sweetness onto. So by now you're probably watching the video and you're like, everyone's codependent, because she named a lot of signs and a lot of chart stuff. And it's probably true. Everyone's a little bit codependent to an extent, just because, as I said before, we're human, so connection is really important. However, balance is the key. Don't let codependency take you under, because martyrdom is not cute on you, boo. Don't be Captain Save a Hoe, Captain Save a Mama, Captain Save a Son if it's really taking you under. It's cool to be there for people every now and then, but ultimately they have their own life lessons that they need to learn with or without you. So don't interrupt their spiritual progress by just going above and beyond for them every time. All right, so that's all I'm going to say about codependency. If you have questions about your birth chart or you want to schedule a reading, hit me up at homegirlastrology.com. Happy to do a natal chart reading with you to see where you may be experiencing codependency and how we can get you up out of that, okay? All right, feel free to like this video, share it, comment below, and subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for watching. Peace.